Maybe you're already aware of this, but I was blown away to discover that sexual compulsion is the direct result of sexual repression. In case you hadn't noticed, the sexual impulse is an incredibly powerful energetic force inside of human beings. And when it's held back or pushed down, it creates all kinds of problems for people. But why would we ever hold it back or push it down? Well, many of us as kids were taught that sex is either sacred or profane, right? So it's either very good and special and sacred, or it's very bad and wrong and perverse, or sometimes both, which is especially common if you were raised in religion. But ultimately, most of us were, to some degree, moralistically conditioned around sex and sexuality, meaning to view it as good, bad, right, wrong, or some of both. Now, imagine that the same thing happened, but instead of sex, it was sneezing. The fundamentalists would say no sneezing before marriage, right? Or the culture might say, are you really interested in that girl or boy? Or are you just using them to sneeze with? But the pro-sneezers, or the sneeze positive people, would say, sneeze as much as you want with whoever else wants to sneeze with you. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. All the conflicting messages from so many different directions, you might get so confused and thrown off balance that you decide, you know what? So nobody gets hurt, I'm just gonna stay home and watch internet sneezography. Which you soon find out is a whole nother can of worms, because you've got the pro-sneezography people, the anti-sneezography people. You've got science now saying that sneezing too much can mess with your neuroplasticity. I mean, it's like you can't get away from the moral dilemma, from the good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, yeah? Well, I have some good news and some bad news when it comes to sex, not sneezing. Bad news first, you'll never get out of that moral dilemma, good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, as long as sexual and emotional repression is at play in your system. Good news is, if you do address your sexual and emotional repression, then sex can return to its normal natural state and become as innocent and benign as sneezing. For you, not for everybody else who's still, trapped in their sexual and emotional repression induced morality prison. Because that's why repression creates compulsion, not just the physiological part, that we see with sex or food or drugs or alcohol, where it's like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, I gotta do it. But the fact that when I'm in repression of any kind, sexual or emotional, I'm denying myself expression, right? And when I'm doing that, I quietly, sort of secretly, want to control other people's expression as well, because if I'm not allowed to, neither are you. And so I have to create rules, good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, in order to accomplish that goal, right? It's misery loves company. So at a deeper level, it's not just that repression creates compulsion, it's that repression creates morality. But it's a false morality, right? Carl Jung said there can be no true morality without freedom. There is only morality if you can choose, and you cannot choose if you are forced. So if you were forced as a kid into a false morality, especially around sex, meaning you view it as good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, then I hate to break it to you, but you're already in sexual and emotional repression. This is why people talk about trauma being generational, right? Because repressed people raise repressed people. And so to be a cycle breaker, or to break the cycle of generational trauma, is to deprogram from your repression-driven false morality and come out of emotional and sexual repression. In KI, which is the Killer Bee inquiries, we utilize what we call emotional repression inquiry to challenge the tenets of your false morality, good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, in order to access, feel, and express the emotions and the energies like sexuality that are buried in your body and that drive your suffering. When you really start to dig into this work, and I know this sounds crazy, but the good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't just start to sound weird and irrelevant. Like, sneezing is bad. What? Sneezing is sneezing. Repression creates false morality, which drives compulsion. If you'd like to learn more, visit repressiontest.com.